Hello everyone, and welcome back to Mup Law Warpath Edition. My name is Wiki Dave, and with me, as always, I got Claudio. How are you doing, Claudio?
Hi Dave, I'm feeling fine. Looking forward to this one again. I think the last one was a great episode, so really hyped for this
Yeah,
one.
we got a lot of good feedback for it. I should actually introduce you like Chris does with Clem, and with me I've got Claudio. I should just do that as a bit of a mirror. But yeah, last episode was really good, and we got a lot of good feedback, and I think it's really starting to open up some of these conversations about a Warpath lore, which is really great. So we've got another great episode going through, and what's this one going to be about, Claudio?
This one is about the Adriana incident, and the Adriana incident will be one of the first stepping stones for the plague going through the GCPS space. And we will dig into the history before Adriana. We will see and show, hopefully, how the GCPS will handle the plague and the problems going together with all those opportunities, maybe even for a bit more money for the corporations, and how that, in the end, leads to this disaster on this planet, Adriana. So I think we will have a few bits of lore from many factions again with this one, so we'll see where we end.
Yeah, and it's all, this time we won't talk about so much about planet licenses. So for those that are hanging out for that, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But first of all, we'll go through some news because we like to throw in some news at the beginning of all these episodes. And with Warpath, you don't get a lot of it, so when it does come up, we want to talk about it. So for the CorpNet news for this episode, which is sponsored by Megan Corporation and the Chimera Corp, we got two bits. So we'll talk about the more lighter news first, which is in the vault. We actually have some new Marauder customization bits, which Claudio actually spotted. I think it was just been released like yesterday or something like that of the image when we're actually recording this. We're not going to tell you when we record this because you're probably hearing this many weeks later. But it's good to see a little bit more customization for some of the Warpath stuff in the vault.
Exactly. For me, it's released today, so there we have time zones.
You just revealed when we're actually recording this now, because someone will figure it
out. So the Marauder bits, which will drop on the vault or will be already on there if you're listening to it, are pretty interesting. Again, a bit fitting to our theme here because they are more customization bits. So they are meant to go with the plastic sprues, the hard plastic sprues from the Marauder kit, and you have a few more options there, a few weapons, specialist weapons, arms, cigar holding arm, for example, for a leader. So you can go a bit more down a route you like for them to look. And I think that's awesome. I think that's a really good idea to use the vault to get more pieces, more options out there, and to customize your own force. So same bit goes for the GCPS we talked about last episode.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that continues.
Interestingly enough. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because I think there are also 4 arms in there. Yeah, Ripper for the Ripper suits, which don't have different weapons, but they look a bit different and are just there to show that they aren't looking the same because you use the PVC bodies, but now have a few more arm options. So they don't look like twins all the time, which is good, especially for firefight, I think, where you use a bit more of them.
And I think there's a lot of the customization coming in is really going to start, hopefully, seeing a little bit more uniqueness to the armies on the table, which is going to be really great to see. I think that's
exactly
that's something what people have been kind of reaching out for, and like they want more personality thrown onto the table, especially with the Warpath. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to add more personality to it. And I think this is just another way of doing that instead of just the colors that you use. You can definitely make some really cool looking sculpts there.
Yeah, and on top of that, there are actually a few new bits which will have new rules for Dead Zone, and for Firefight. So we have there a Grenadier model. So many of the bodies on this spruce have quite a few grenades on them. So you could kit bash that maybe if you don't have a 3D printer, but here you have an official new Grenadier model, which will see rules on the companion, either both for Firefight as a squad, I assume, and as a normal profile for Dead Zone. And besides the Grenadier, there is also an option for an engineer. So even more flavor and new rules there. So I think it's really good to have those bits and pieces, and it's really playing to the strength of the Vault and the companion to get these out here and have a few new options.
Yeah, I think people are also asking for the Vault to have more stuff like this. And hopefully, if we see this trend going, so we've got GCSP. Oh, God, I always mucked it up. GCPS, yes. We got that last month. We're getting more orders this month. It'll be interesting to see what's going to be next month. If that trend continues, could we get Forge Fathers?
Yeah, Forge Fathers were the first, actually. Those go back, I think, maybe November, December. They had also like engineering arms and flavor bits, other weapons and pumps, and so more on the technical mechanic engineer side of things, which is really fitting the background. So,
I got that right because I must have been just drawn to the boats and I completely missed that. All right, so I wonder what would be next then. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And hopefully that trend continues and we start to see a lot more Warpath stuff in the Vault, which is good.
I think the last bit from the Vault, which is also for Warpath, are new round bases. So it looks like 625mm, 240 and 160. We've already got one set last year, I think, with more of an metal sheets urban theme, maybe fitting the terrain style from the hubs. But now we have a bit of a wasteland battlefield style of bases, and I'm really glad to get those too, because I mean it's also more flavorful to have nice bases alongside your units.
Yeah, just fits the whole Vault. So we'll put a link to this month's Vault in the description below if you're curious to look at it, because it's free to look. You don't have to get. So yeah, give it a look and see whether it's enticing enough for you to get. I don't personally have a 3D printer. I would love one, but unfortunately there's not really any places around here I can go to actually get it printed out. So yeah, hopefully we start to see more of that, and we get some of these sculpts actually seen on the table. So I'm really looking forward to a lot of. I'll be interested to see how the bases come out, because that's a relatively new thing they've been putting on the Vault, is the bases. So I think this is the second or third time they've actually put bases down. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out. All right, well, moving on, we'll go to the other piece of news that we've got is, as we mentioned last episode, there's going to be a re-release for First Strike, and they've actually released the name for it. So it's actually going to be called First Strike Alpha Strike Edition. So what we found out, and if you're a follower of the Mantic Universe podcast, you would have seen last week we did an interview with Brandon Rosemond, who is part of Winged Hussar, or pretty much he's the chief editor and kind of runs that whole joint. He announced that they're actually going to re-release it and rewrite a lot of bits and add a little bit of an addendum for it, which is actually, I've seen it. It's a pretty meaty addendum as well. So, and that's going to lead to future books. So it's available for pre-order already. So I put the link down below there, and it's going to be released at Adepticon as well. So if you're going to Adepticon, make sure you pick up a copy. But if you're actually just an overall fan, make sure you pre-order it and just keep an eye out for it, because I mean, this is going to lead to hopefully something similar that we're seeing with Kings of War, of books coming out on a regular basis for the universe. And I think this is really the first step of potentially what we could call a relaunch of those novels, and having a re-release of a Mantic book is the first as well. So it's really exciting. I think we are planning on having an interview with Chris. Oh, I can't I'm butcher his surname. Chris Verspeak? Verspeak? Yeah. The actual
I think,
author.
yes.
Yeah. The actual author. And that will be released in a couple of weeks as well. So we're going to have a good interview with them and just have a good old discussion about Warpath and writing for it, and really just, hopefully get some little tidbits out of them for the future. I'm really looking forward to that, because I haven't personally read the book, but Claudia, you've read the original edition, correct?
Yes, I've read the original one when it came out with, I think, the second edition Kickstarter where the Veer-myn were released. So, Infestation, and I think it was part of the Dead Zone or the older Firefight campaign, one of those two, and I've really enjoyed it, because usually we only got our short stories as part of the more fighting part of the universe, not the Dread Bull one, which got now 2 books. But so it's the first real in-depth look at a few characters, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'm a big fan of a Dead Zone model, which is the main character, Lieutenant Commander Roka, an enforcer, sniper, forward observer. So looking into how those enforcers feel, act, and so on was great to the understanding of the faction and how they act, and also the other protagonists and parties involved. It's a really great book, and I'm looking forward to see what changes they did, and hopefully what will come after that for the Warpath universe, for the lore.
Because you said it was originally planned for a trilogy, because this was before my time, before I really got involved in the Warpath universe.
Yes, there were. I think it wasn't really like an official statement, but there were always rumors. I'm really not that sure anymore, but word was out there that it was like a first try. It was for the Kickstarter, and then more was planned. But as plans change, it wasn't really done. But maybe this time they are doubling down and doing it right with the re-release, and then going forward with maybe something else, because they've done it for Kings of War. So hopefully we will see more.
And I do know that they're trying to get the lore a little bit more involved in their releases as well. So I'm going to be interested to see, with this rewrite and with the hints at the Rebs models coming out, whether we're going to see a tie in there, because they have been teasing new Rebs sculpts or some kind of release with their social media once it hits a certain point. I've got a feeling they've got that ready to go, and we could be seeing some kind of, hopefully some tie-in there. But I mean, that's just me wishful thinking, because I really want to see more of the Rebs, because I think they're the most interesting faction at the moment to, I would even say, just collect from someone that doesn't play the game that much and more of a collector of models and loves the lore and stuff. I think Rebs is quite interesting, and I can see the Rebs leading to probably could be hints of other factions that could spawn out of it, like we've seen with the Matsudan. Yes, yep. And you know how they kind of split into their own faction for Dead Zone. We could see a similar thing for the Rebs, of some of those races becoming their own thing, which would be really cool, because I would love kind of a sea-based faction. So the Cypher and the Sagar, that would be really cool to see those races become their own faction, and then you can have like sharks riding tanks. I think that would be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I think the Rebs are a good stepping stone for more of a variety, and hopefully we will see them back again, maybe even Firefight at some point. I mean, there are many discussions. Are they too splintered, too small to really fight on a bigger scale or not? We will see. But I think personally, as my main faction from the beginning, like now 10 years ago, they have always a special place in my heart. So hopefully with the hints we got about them planning something for the 1000 year anniversary of the GCPS, it will be a good point for them to reignite the flames of the rebellion.
And I think there's no rush on it as well. I think then them taking their time, them dropping these little things and getting people excited about it, I think there's no rush on it. I just am super interested in what they have planned, and I want to see it. But so if you out there wanting more Rib stuff, make sure you follow the Mantic Games' YouTube channel and just kind of show them some love and kind of ask for it. If you harass them enough, they may eventually give it to us. So
absolutely,
and I think fingers crossed on that.
And I think Firefight doing so well, being so well received, getting awards was really, really important for the development of the universe because of that. I mean, Dead Zone was there a long time, but it's not as a big of a game as Firefight. Firefight really drew in many new people. I feel it's a great game, and now Epic Warpath it's on its way, so it makes sense to now develop the universe more. The source book is old now too, so it's time to really move on. And as we already discussed last time in the Nexus I episode, we know that the galaxy is evolving with us a bit in real time, maybe making a few jumps. We will see how they will handle that, but it's more or less like a real time advancement of time and events. So everything that comes out now will further the lore, and it will make it just better to play in there, because we know the rules are great, but the universe is great, and people should just get to the point where they are invested and interested, because it's so much more fun to play in a universe and then love, rather than just playing just with the toy soldiers. I mean, you could do exactly that, but personally, I feel, I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
yeah, exactly. I think what another point is the Halo games actually brought more eyes to this universe. So it's basically a bit of a gateway drug for a lot of people experiencing Mantic for the first time. They're going to Halo, and I see this on the Halo subreddit of people posting, "Hey, I really liked Halo. I like how it works. What other games can I get into?" Most of the time, the first comment is, "Well, it's based off the Dead Zone engine, so Dead Zone's a really good one." And then a lot of people can kind of compare it to, it's like 40k, but it's not. It's a lot easier to. It's very much like Halo, just a different kind of universe. And then that leads to Firefight, and it's exactly what Mantic hoped for as well. And you're starting to see that. So we are getting more and more eyes and voices to the world, and when that happens, you get more people wanting to get the models, get the books, and then that starts to show, hey, there is at the end of the day, Mantic is a business, so they're going to put the money towards creating products that's going to help their overall business, and they're going to invest in that. And if they're seeing people buying a particular thing, they're going to put more money into that thing, and then we're going to hopefully see it grow and expand. And I think books is one area that you could really go nuts with it in this world. And I think with the history of all these planets that we know about that have been written down that we don't really have explored, like the Cypher, their world being completely destroyed, and then now kind of joining the Ribs and all that. I think there's really a big story that could be told there, and I think those are interesting enough races to really draw in some uniqueness to the world as well, or to the universe as well.
Exactly. Yes, we have a really, really broad universe that if you go looking for it, there are so many tidbits here and there which aren't explored yet, but would be the perfect setting to dig deep there, as you already mentioned, and maybe even go with more alien species, because usually you get like an outside perspective from them, but I would love to see a story from the perspective of the Nameless, like their Uluk sect. How do they work? How do they think even? I mean, it's hard, and I mean, it's a bit.
Because the
nice
Nameless is interesting, because that Nameless feels like I thought when I first learned about the lore is that the Nameless were similar like the Plague, is that they've got no intelligence. They're just raging across the universe, taking over everything. But they've got some culture. They've got some, they play Dreadball, for God's sake. So they've got something. I mean, you could argue the plague does as well. There's some aspects to that, but they're a little bit more, accultured than that seems like on the surface as well. So it'd be interesting to dive more into how that society kind of works.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. On that note, we might as well jump into our topic for the episode, which is I can't say the word.
Adriana.
I don't know why I do podcasts if I can't say words. Okay, yeah, the Ariana Grande incident. So
exactly. Now we're
we'll jump into that. And Corp News was brought to you by the Megan Corporation and Chimera Corp. I have to mention that because now's a thing, and I'm kind of regretting doing it. But I'm going to do it every episode now for the rest of the time. All right, so take it away, Claudio.
Okay, so the Adriana, I've called it incident here because I was going backwards and forward. How do I really want to call it? And I think incident is the best way to go there because, as I already mentioned, it's a bit of a new experience for the GCPS. And things happened there. I have another quote here for the beginning. It's from the diary of a council member, a GCPS Council of 7 member, one where we actually get the name because that's a bit shrouded in mystery. His name is Severin Roth, and he has written down in his diary an excerpt about Adriana. So I will just read that out aloud, and then we can see what we have to expect from this episode. History may judge us as monsters, but what choice did we have? Let those people out of that place and risk the security of the entire GCPS? No. We left them there and we let them die because we knew that just one of those things could destroy everything we had built if we let it get out. So, what do you think about that? What happened on Adriana?
They had a massive party. Like, they got really drunk. And then they just went nuts. And they did some inappropriate things that got them Me Too'd. I don't know.
Yes, that's about it. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Of course, obviously, it's about the plague. And it's about one of the first containment protocols that were enacted. Because
So do we know what year this took place?
Yes.
I'm just trying to put a timeline in my brain of like when, because we know when the last one took place, the Nexus PSI. So how earlier in the timeline was this incident?
Oh, yes, we are good many years earlier than Nexus I. We already talked. Nexus I is about I think we said 10 years from now in the timeline. Nexus I was 987, whereas Adriana is...
I'm just thinking, like, how long did the GCPS know about the plague? And that's, I'm kind of putting the timeline that they had these protocols in place, which kind of makes sense of why they were so refined by the time the Nexus PSI incident took place, because they did have a protocol and the containment protocol. So if this was one of the first ones, it'll be interesting to see
Adriana
how long they had.
about 100 years before Nexus I.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's a bit of a jump.
It's quite, yes. So we have a few... the Death Arc and the Plague is known a bit longer than actually the Now. And things happened, but the public didn't know about it. So the public
it was kept secret, basically.
is left in the dark. Yes. That's the whole point of dead zones and shutting down planets and erasing them from the maps, because they don't want people to know that this is happening.
And so they managed to keep this quiet basically until Nexus PSI. So about 100 years they kept the plague a secret, at least from the GCPS populace, you could say. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Keep going.
So yes, interestingly enough, before Adriana, as I already mentioned, we talked about, the plague was already known. But on Adriana, it really got out of hand, because it was the first time that a plague artifact had been discovered. So we talked about it last time, that on Nexus I there was an artifact found from the tablet exactly, and that was the beginning of the infection on the planet. So no outside source coming to the planet, but it was on the planet already. And Adriana is the first time where this happened in GCPS space. So it wasn't known that what would happen or how the plague would spread. And it was also far away from the origin of the plague, or at least the known origin for the GCPS, because the GCPS, or at least the council members, knew that in the Assyrian space, there is a region called the Death Arc. And the Death Arc, it's a good name already, is on the border between the Assyrian space and the GCPS. And there are many dead planets. So it's a big mystery.
Hence the name. That's why I'm assuming it's called that.
Yes, the name says it already. Yeah. The corporations were looking for new planets, went to the Death Arc, wanted to know what's happening there, ruins, interesting. Maybe you could settle there because there's no indigenous population you have to, pay off in a way. So profit could be had there. And scout ships from Kanko, so another corporation, went there, found those tomb worlds. They were completely dead. And at that point, Assyrian diplomats met with the GCPS and told them that they should not go there. Like, not at all. And it's not really known how, but they were able to persuade the council members that they agreed that the humans would really see that as a border between the space and would not delve into the Death Arc.
So they actually listened to regulation and stuck to it. That's very unlike corporations.
Well, I've not said that the corporation listened to that.
Okay, never mind. I'm jumping ahead.
Yes, because now it was forbidden, a few corporations thought, well, then it must be really valuable or something really, really valuable and interesting there. So we have to go there now. Because, that's how human works. So with the
so basically corporations are children. I basically don't push this button. I've got a button here. Do not press the button. It's really bad if you press the button, and then they walk away and the kid pushes the button. So basically corporations are like that.
Exactly. Yes. Because if profit can be made, you have to push that button. So in the end, House Grace ships, one of the biggest corporations, really influential, went in there, never came out for a long time. Until then they did. And they were transformed. And they were the first plague fleets coming out of there. And the council had to make sure that no one goes in there. And then after that no one gets out of there again. So they had some patrols alongside the border. First, they used marauders as shock troops, as good mercenaries to do their bidding. But then the Mandrake Rebellion happened and the marauders split and, it was a really bloody affair. And after the Mandrake Rebellion, we will talk about it in a future episode. I'm really, really sure.
I can't wait for that one. That is, I'm super interested in that because it feels a very unique orc lore.
It's a really, really big cut also in the GCPS history because after the Mandrake Rebellion, the council got to the point where we know them now. Because it's much more centralized and they have much more power. Because there was this patrol of marauders. They weren't used anymore because of the rebellion, and something else was used instead, Project Ichiban. So the first enforcers, after many tests, were then sent to this border and stayed there. So it's called the Long Patrol, where they patrol the the border and look out for ships. But as we already said, the corporations wanted more. And they went in there, came out, changed. And that's the point where the Asterians also realized that they call it the Scourge, is much more terrifying and adaptable with the human DNA, it seems, because they were the new plague now was more fierce and really they changed really well. So it's a big new threat they are facing there now.
Because the Marauders were immune to the plague, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, I remember
we already
that.
talked about it. So they didn't go in there, even if they were immune, but it would have been a better choice to have them there. But, well, they
probably didn't even know they were immune at that point.
No, I don't think so. Because it wasn't really known what was there. It was only known that something bad is behind that border in the Asterian, or that part of the Asterian space.
Okay.
So, but in the end, not every ship could be shot down by the long patrol, and some of the plague ships got through the net there, through the wall, and starting from that point, it wasn't unusual to see plague ships appearing here and there, and they were hunted down mercilessly by the enforcers.
Now, were the plague ships that were run by the plague, or were they actually just ships that the plague kind of was, they could infect and kind of control that way? Kind of like I'm trying to think of a comparison. We'll go back to the flood from Halo, how they kind of molded into the ship, and the plague and the ship were essentially the flood and the ships were like a living entity. Was that the case here, or was it kind of they just flew them?
No, they are actually GCPS ships that are flown by Stage 3As. So we talked about it last time that we have different stages, and the Stage 3s usually are those who look more like the natural host, like a normal human being in this case, but transformed with a bit of denser muscles and more aggressive. But they still retain most of their functions, so they can still use ships to travel through the stars, or
that makes sense.
Use vehicles and so on. So these are really GCPS ships with changed passengers and pilots and so on.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So from the perspective of the GCPS or the Council, it was imperative to stop these ships so that the plague wouldn't spread, and it worked. More or less. I mean, they monitored plague fleets, they hunted them down, but now Adriana happened. And that's where also it wasn't really close to the death arc. It's quite a bit from the long patrol to Adriana, and then there we have a plague infection. The complete planet is torn asunder by violence, and no one knows really what is happening there. Like, there's civil disorder because everything is going, it's chaotic, people are turning on each other and so on, and no one really knows that the plague existed, or on the planet. So no one really knew how to handle the situation. And so the Council does what the Council does. They hear about this, and it's clear that it wasn't done by a fleet coming in there, or like a ship crashing there and spreading the plague, but they sent pathfinders out there to find what happened, and they saw that something was unearthed. So they sent more enforcer ships, and they had to shut down all orbital transports so that no one could get out or away from the planet. And
okay, I'm following along with you. I'm just listening. It's super interesting.
Yes. They knew from the Soto sector, so that was the sector close to the long patrol, that they had to act swiftly and without mercy. So the plague was something they hadn't encountered before, and the lethality and also the virulence. So if you don't stop it, it's just get worse exponentially. and they knew panic wasn't something they want. So the Council of Seven did that, and the first time everything was deleted. So from the NAVCOM databanks, so that you couldn't travel there. We already spoke about that it happened on Nexus Psi, that it just went dark. You can't travel there. If you're on the way there, your flight will just stop, and it's not on the map anymore. And the existence of this whole planet was just removed from the official GCPS logs. Everything about it.
So it's pretty much like the clone planet from Star Wars. They just nuked the records.
It's not in the archives. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but not only did they delete it from the archives and in the data banks, they also deleted the planet or all life forms. So any ship trying to leave the surface, but also everything that was on the surface was to be terminated by the enforcers. And it wasn't an easy task, of course, and it was really expensive, and everything the council had, political and physical, had to be used to really make this happen, that it went completely dark. But we've heard the quote already at the beginning, it was worth it, at least in the eyes of the council. So they had to kill civilians, they had to kill not infected ones, survivors, they had to kill everything and everyone.
Now, did the Asterians find out about all this, or, you know, because you said, I think last episode, if memory serves me right, they were a little bit pissed at the GCPS. Was this the reason for it?
Yes, because there were parts in the society and also in the leadership who thought for the balance, because for the Asterians the most important thing is balance in the universe. And they seem to see the GCPS as a threat to that balance, obviously, because it's just such a big empire, ruthless. And but with the plague, they also saw the opportunity to make it without a big fight, without having to terminate the GCPS or going on an all-out war, because that's not something they want to do easily. There were a few that wanted to push the agenda because they said they can't be trusted. I mean, we see that it could have been an option. And on the other hand, the council probably wasn't really going to do that with the Mandrake Rebellion and so on. They had their own problems establishing the Enforcer Corps. So maybe both sides just wanted peace at that point, and it helped that the GCPS for once wasn't really aggressive. But until now, we are at a point where the ones in the Asterian society who want more warfare, who want to act against the GCPS, also in order to contain the spread of the plague, because obviously the GCPS isn't handling it as well as some of the Asterians would like it. So there are voices who say, okay, we just killed the GCPS, we killed the plague with that. So they aren't really happy. They didn't go there and bombard everything, but they know and they monitor those outbreaks. They even monitor any now. They even monitor any communications going dark and so on, because they know how the containment protocols work, and so they have an AI in place that sees when communications are shut down on a planet, or if there are calls for help, and then it's shut down, so they can act and at least overlook how the containment protocols and the GCPS act, and if it's not working, they can react accordingly then.
So essentially they're constantly monitoring for plague outbreak, which leads to the whole belief that they are part of the origins of the plague.
Yes, I mean, we talked about it. It's coming from their star empire, out of their region in space. The planets have weird old architectural ruins there, which could fit the aesthetic of the Asterians, and they are so involved, and they are the only ones who really know that. So there are rumors that they have something to do with it.
Interesting. And their actions are kind of backing that up. So it's all
yes.
pointing in that direction. Interesting. Okay.
So I've talked about those containment protocols, so that shutting down of whole planets, going dark, erasing them, and as it was the first artifact-related outbreak, the GCPS knew, okay, just going for some ships isn't enough. They have to be prepared if this happens. And it wasn't the last outbreak. I know when we have Nexus Cyber, but so many others, and it's more common than even those who think they know that the plague exists. Even they couldn't imagine how common it is on a galaxy-spanning scale. But that is really something, the containment protocol, which were refined after Adriana, which were really established then. It speaks for them working rather well, so that the information isn't spread across the whole of the GCPS.
And from what in my limited research I did, there's also containment protocols for other beings, but the plague one is the major one that everyone knows about. Like, I do know they've got containment for like the Veer-myn if they overrun, and also possibly the Zor. I found it on the wiki that you updated. So yeah, I found that. So the containment protocols is essentially a protocol not specifically for the plague, just it's used the majority for the plague. There's a plague containment protocol, but there's also ones for Veer-myn and for Zor and possibly other species that do have a little bit outbreaks, which is quite interesting to know that those two species actually do have an issue with getting out of control. Or you can understand the Veer-myn one, but the Zor is quite interesting lore there as well. So it's interesting to see that this is not a brand new thing for the GCPS. It is something that they've had in place, but now it's kind of evolved to be a specific plague containment protocol, which has to be a little bit more stricter, you could say, just because of how quickly it spreads, really.
How it spreads. Yeah. So it can vary. Also the length and how it's really made in the end can vary from also species or from the biohazard that is causing it. But they have also like a really, really strict plan how to do that. Enforcer Pathfinders are sent there. They have to find the target. They have to, because maybe it's only rumors through the communication, so it has to be really confirmed by Enforcer Pathfinders usually that there is something, and then total shutdown happens. And you could say it's for the benefit of the GCPS and the population, but we know what happens with inhabitants of those worlds. They can't get out because they would spread the word that something happened. So
it's basically COVID, but on a planet.
And with more
it's basically
weapons.
COVID lockdown. Yeah.
Yes, it's a total lockdown, but you usually have, at least with the plague, you have no way of getting out. With the other ones,
there's no vaccine.
It depends,
yeah.
because usually, even with Veer-myn, you want to. Most people think it's only rumors that there are giant rats. So there's that. The GCPS doesn't want bad news out there, but I think they are more strict with the restrictions regarding the plague.
Which is the fascinating that Veer-myn is seen as more of a rumor than not, considering how big they are and kind of how widespread. Do you think, because you can just to bring it to the table again, you can play Veer-myn as a firefight faction, which indicates they're quite massive, teams. Dizzo makes a little bit of sense. You've got a smaller squad, but to have a firefight team of a faction indicates there's a lot of them. So the fact that it's kept so secret just shows you how much control they have over their news and how information is spread as well. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Megan Corporation won't sponsor the news when panic is spread, So the control is total control, really, yes. Because I think times are changing, and it makes sense from the perspective of a wargaming universe that you can say, okay, now we're in the time where things got worse.
Yeah.
Or maybe even get worse, like every year or something like that, because now the vermin maybe are driven out by something and show themselves a bit more. The plague is
kind of like the plague,
around,
yeah.
so
Because the plague is now pretty much exposed after the Nexus PSI, and there was no way to hide it after that point. And I think also if we rope it to modern day as well, we know the misinformation is quite easily spread and accepted as well as fact. So it's not unplausible to see, the vermin being able to be kept a secret or a rumor or myth, because misinformation can easily be thrown out there. So it's interesting to see that we are now in the point of, now the plague's exposed, what big event will maybe the vermin have to cause in order for people to go, oh, okay, they can't deny it anymore. It's gone, it's gone too far.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Dead Zone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
So it'll be interesting to see whether maybe, because they can, I'm assuming vermin can fly ships. I know they have been on ships because they kind of stow away on them, kind of like actual vermin. So it'll be interesting to see whether maybe we could see a big incident of them hijacking a ship, maybe coming together, becoming an actual force. I think there's a home planet of vermin. Is that right?
Yes, it's shrouded in mystery. Exactly what's about the home planet, and if they really have a home planet. There were rumors that they could be mutated rats from Earth, but that is more a rumor than truth, it seems. So maybe they have one, but it's really clouded in mystery at that point. So and about the stowaway and flying ships, usually most of the time they use tech or reused tech from the GCPS. So again, a bit like the plague in that regard, but they work on that a bit more. But I think it would really be good to have maybe a follow-up to this now plague containment protocols we're talking about, and we could look next time at XM4 and what happened there, because there you really see a main not plague, of course not plague, a main vermin outbreak. So
that's good. That would be cool.
I think it would be a good time to really show the differences maybe, and how those operate, and how the GCPS has to handle it, and maybe also other factions.
Yeah, that's it. That would be awesome to dive into next time, because vermin. I'm a ratkin. I love fantasy ratkin, but you never see space rats enough. So it'd be cool to really dive and sink our teeth into that one. Anyway, well let's stick to. Sorry, mate, actually clicked in there. Let's get back to the plague. So what next? What happened?
So the planet was, everything was shut down. Everyone was killed. Civilians trying to escape the horrors. Well, no one was safe, and the enforcers were targeting them from orbit, preventing any ships leaving, and tried to eradicate everything. And they stayed there for an entire month, while Corporation Central and the Council of Seven debated what to do. There were calls to carpet bomb Adriana, but larger corporations didn't want that. Because, what do you think? Why are representatives from larger corporations against a carpet bombing of the whole planet?
Money, resources. It will destroy all the resources. Yeah.
Yes, because one from one of the bigger corporations, Lufan, he gave a speech, impassioned speech. It is called, because there is still so much intact, because only the population and the living beings were being destroyed or killed, but there wasn't open warfare in that regards. So the infrastructure, the structures were there, mostly intact, and those had value. And so the corporations didn't want to just, delete the whole surface and lose on profits.
You know what that reminds me of? Do you ever watch Shrek when he's like, some of you may die, but that is the sacrifice I'm willing to take.
Exactly. So the outbreak had to be contained and the infrastructure preserved. So that's when the containment protocol happened, and it was like one of the first cases where they had to discuss how to do it, and this was later then used again to minimize the profit losses for the corporations while still containing the outbreaks, because it would be easier to go all out on the plague once it spreads, but then it would cost the corporations more, and in the end we have a greedy capitalistic, hyper-capitalistic system here, so it matters more than the people there, because you could maybe save some. It would be more risky, but on the long run, it's not really something the corporations are interested in.
So is it still quarantined to now, or we just don't know?
Adriana is not on the maps anymore. So
we don't know its current status.
Yes, for the public probably it's not. It's just gone, and if there are any plans right now to salvage something from the surface, I think it's not really known. But I mean, there are people who were
certainly
in the
people
known,
talk
so.
about it, right? Like they must have like, hey, there was a planet here at one point. Where did it go? Because it's no longer on the map. Certainly someone noticed.
Yes. Yes, someone noticed, and there are rumors, and there are people who spread it, like voices of truth and so on, conspiracy theorists, how they are known, and they are silenced. They get silenced by the council and by the agents that just work like anti-propaganda divisions doing their job. I mean, there are still a few who say something about it, and there's the RepsNet where people who join the rebellion try to spread truths. Sometimes you don't know if it's really a truth or not, or if it's really just a theory, but those really try to get it out to the people, and then on the other hand, they try to censor it again.
Okay, so it does feel like eventually it's going to crack, though, right? All these hidden secrets are trying to suppress all of it, and I think that's why the Rebs, I think, and going back to our early conversation, I think the Rebs are going to play a bigger part in the universe.
Yeah, I mean, and we've heard in the last summer campaign that maybe Blaine is working closer together with the Reps now. I mean, it was just for the council member talked to Blaine, one very special individual in the universe who was with every bigger conflict or a thing that happened in the universe, he's in the know somehow or involved.
He's in the Kings of War universe too somehow.
Yes.
What is Blaine? What is Blaine?
I think Blaine could be an own episode, to be honest, because Blaine is an interdimensional being, or traveler. So maybe it's the same Blaine in Kings of War, on Penethor, and in the Warpath universe. At least
it could be like a Doctor Who kind of thing. Of that the Blaine that we could be seeing now could be an earlier or later version of the Blaine that we see in Kings of War. So it'd be interesting to see. I would love a book on him, just a book, and I feel like my gut says it's going to be tied to the Night Stalkers, because the Night Stalkers are in both games. They are also interdimensional beings, and I think they travel through the void or something like that. I think Blaine's story could explain those, because why the Night Stalkers are able to cross over. So I hope they do something more with Blaine than just. I mean, obviously they brought him up last year with the summer campaign, so they brought him back for a reason. It's not just a gimmick character, which he kind of did seem like in Kings of War. They didn't really do too much in terms of the story with him.
No,
here
in
they're
Warpath,
actually doing something.
Yes, in Warpath he was really involved in one of the biggest events He was one key player in the Mandrake Rebellion too, and he seems to be a bit of an agent for the Council of Seven. They hire him for a few jobs, like inside jobs. And then he hires mercenaries to do it. There are a few examples there. There is in the last summer campaign was such an inside job where he was hired when they went against Mason Labs on Iras. Blaine was hired. So there are a few things here and there where he will surely be involved. And even with the Night Stalker cover-ups and then leaks and so on, I'm pretty sure that he has a bigger role than we might think.
And we don't really know what race he is either, eh?
No. He's something unique for now.
Interesting.
But speaking of this theories and conspiracy, there is actually something, the so-called artifact conspiracy. Dissidents and activists, we already talked about, the voices get silenced as quickly as possible, but we know that there are people who are against the GCPS and standing up against them. And there is a rumor, a claim that the corporation central houses an entire data farm of encrypted stacks containing records of every cover-up the council has ever engineered. So if this data farm could be found, it would be like the destruction, the end of the GCPS as we know it. Because then people, I think, couldn't be contained anymore in their beliefs against the corporations. And there is an agitator known as Guru, and he was like in several subnet forums, and he was active not long before the Nexus I. So between Adriana as the first incident, then many other happened, and then one of the bigger recent ones, Nexus I. And just before that, he claimed to have accessed the data farm, and cracked the encryption. And they claimed that 81% of containment protocols, the system in question was the site of an artifact discovery. So that's quite a big number, because that would every containment protocol, or every fourth out of five, would be because of a plague artifact. And what was interesting, we talked about it last time, and it's now a tie into that, is that if you remember about licensing, there was. Hey,
we swore we wouldn't talk about licensing.
just a little bit.
Yeah, right.
The council imposed a stay on licensing when the planet was found. When Riker then battled it in the courts against the stay, and they got permission to get on the planet and so on, and then. Later, a few years later, an artifact is found that turns people into plague monsters. So that's kind of fishy. Guru never surfaced again. There was no real evidence. But after Nexus I, those in the knows, because Nexus I couldn't be contained entirely. So those in the networks now claim that what happened with this licensing battle was proof enough that the council already knew that maybe there was an artifact, something was going on there, and that the cover-up is maybe even bigger than we as like outsiders looking at the lore don't even know. So that's, I think, really interesting where this will go.
It's a question of what they've got mapped out, because I mean a lot of these story threads they can kind of leave for a little bit and then come back to. I think that's one of the benefits of having a universe this large and this expanse is that you can have these incidents, kind of leave it there, and then come back to a later date. And especially how we do know in this universe, people live longer than they should, you could say. I think they've got some humans that have lived for hundreds of years.
A few of them.
Yeah, mainly council member. I think there's a council member, so it'll be interesting to see if the council member that you mentioned, Roth, is actually still alive as well. So
could be.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of those things that why I want more books and lore, because we can dive into things that aren't really part of, like, you could say, the main storyline. We could actually explore these little things a little bit more, even if they're just left alone for a few years.
Yes, I mean, this could, we don't really need more than this, because I think it's really intriguing and interesting to think about, and it works on itself. But it's a perfect story hook to come back again. Maybe even, if you want to dive deeper into Blaine's lore or use him, he surely has connections.
Well, the story may be over based off what we have, but the Ariana planet, the Ariana Grande planet, may come back. I mean, that could be used as something to expose to the public of, like, they kept this secret from you. They kept this planet that does exist. It's still there. Look at it. Because, I'm assuming it's still around.
I think so too, because maybe bigger corporations, those who maybe have council members, or members from the corporations in the council, those know about Adriana, and they can go there and salvage maybe everything, or I don't know, traces from the outbreak are removed, everything that was living there killed, and now a resettlement can begin. But how do they do that? Do they call the planet something else and say, "Oh, we discovered a new planet just in the middle of our GCPS space"?
Yeah,
and
that will be a hard sell on that one.
We already got our hubs there, our Shenzig hubs are already there. We just need settlers. Or have they salvaged everything, or are they still salvaging it because they want to make as little as a loss as possible? So, or maybe a rep cell will be able to infiltrate or like pass some patrols there and find out what's on the surface and gather that evidence. So there are many things they can do with that. And I mean, we talked about it. It's been a while now, but events like Nexus Psi really, they made it more public in a way, not in the bigger scale.
Yeah,
exposed it, yes, for a few other people. So they will surely dig, because we already heard there is a conspiracy theory, which isn't as much of a conspiracy theory, but people try to get information about it after this guru information. So that's why I find it really interesting, because it's something, these artifacts are mysterious. Why did the council maybe know that there is something happening? Why are they out here? Why didn't they activate before? There are archaeological... Yes, I mean, I for one would say, don't do any archaeological digging, please. There are artifacts to be found that kill the whole planet.
Yeah.
But it seems that it's still going on. There are... That's not just on... It seems like it's on purpose sometimes, that they are searching for it.
In real life, we know there is a saying that a lot of the time corporations learn the wrong lessons from mistakes. We see that in video games too, is that a video game comes out, it flops, and they don't blame the fact of it's like a live service game. They blame other things that had nothing to do with why it flopped. A lot of the time, it's just the live service game was just crap. And no one likes that anymore. They learn the wrong lessons. And with corporations, a lot of the time, they learn the wrong lessons. The lessons here, every time they find an artifact and the plague breaks out, isn't the fact of, we shouldn't be digging up artifacts, is we should be controlling this outbreak a lot better and not having it spread so much. So I think it does kind of tie into one of the more disappointing things about corporations is the fact that they often learn the wrong lessons and the bottom line comes first. And sadly, we see that nowadays. And in the future, it looks like we still are doing that, just at a different scale.
Yes, that's just it. And I think we have one corporation, one of the better known ones, that is known for meddling with plague things. Mason Labs.
Yes.
Mason Labs is actively trying to get the plague under control, to use it as a weapon, to use it for their gains. And we also know that Mason Labs is backed by the council. For example, there is a sample, the Vector P, which is used as a plague infection and also means to control it. And the council want Mason Labs to research on that, but on the other hand, they want to have a bigger say in the research on these black sites. That's what I meant that on the IRAS contract, where a mercenary band hired by Blaine, who was then hired by the council without him knowing, interestingly, they wanted to get the sample but couldn't do it officially, because if someone from the council would want to, act in business that is only Mason Lab business, they couldn't do it officially. So there are a few questions. How much does the council really know? How much do they know what Mason Lab is doing? Do they want to do that? That seems to be the case. So weaponize the plague, use the plague. I mean, those are humans who are extremely strong and fast, and if controlled properly would make up a really good workforce, I think.
But they want to have plausible deniability as well.
Yes, but I think my personal take is, I mean, the enforcers are really expensive. The Marauders didn't work, so maybe you could use the plague as an army, or, as I said, as a workforce. There would be enough uses for greedy corporations, for a control serum or whatever, to work with the plague. So I'm really interested if we will get more on that in the future at some point, because I mean, I don't want to use morally grey, because it's clear that the GCPS is morally grey. It's
I don't know if they're morally grey. I think they're more it's a little bit more black and white with the GCPS, because I mean, ultimately they don't really do a lot of good. That's pretty much they tell everyone they're doing good, but in reality,
yes,
their actions haven't backed it up. So I don't know if grey is the right description for them.
Yeah.
I think they're more on the evil
really
side
black.
of it, but yeah. But I mean, that's we don't really have, I think, in this universe a good, just to tie it back to Kings of War, we don't have a faction-based good, neutral, evil kind of deal in this universe. I think every faction is leaning towards the not good. There are some positive elements that they try and do good, but a lot of the time there's not really a good faction. It's very much they're more leaning towards the darker side than the lighter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, even in the Asterians, as I already said, I mean, they have some dubious history with the Scourge, or AKA Plague. They have plans or parts of them that want to just kill whole species to get the universe in balance. And greed, Forge Fathers are greedy. They want to exploit the planets, like strip mining them from the resources, because they see it as their ancestral right to do so. So even those from factions where you would say they are maybe more on the good side, not like, the Plague or Veer-myn, where we have some tropes where it's clear that they probably aren't the good guys in the universe. I mean, we don't know what the Plague is planning. Maybe they want just peace for the whole universe once they have assimilated and killed everything else.
Yeah, but it's like the Marauders, right? They were enslaved, and now they're free, and now pretty much they get to be mercenaries and be their own boss at the end of the day. So they're closer to the good side than anyone else.
Yes,
because
they are
free.
Maybe true neutral in a sense, which is maybe the best you can get.
Yeah, the best you could ask for. Yeah. I mean, if we look at, Nameless, we don't really know their intentions when it comes to Nameless. They're just kind of existing.
I mean, the sect that is now getting the upper hand, the Uluk, they want warfare, and they want.
Yeah, but that's a sect of it, and that's what makes me think that
maybe the whole of the society is a better one. But we don't know that for now.
Yeah,
so maybe
the way I've
guys.
interpret it is just one country of that faction that's going away and causing chaos, and the others just want to stay out of it and just keep their peaceful. They're happy living in their peaceful society if the aggressive one has gone off and doing dirty things. So I I don't know. I mean, does that make them bad if they're not trying to stop that? But I think it's
or
a lot
if they
better
are
than,
unable. It seems that they are maybe just unable, that the ones are getting too strong. I think that's also an interesting point. And the Nameless are more in the spotlight now with the release of a real faction release for Epic Warpath, but also the summer campaign where they were one of the major players. So Tertia will be also one of a topic for the future, I think, because we can then go a bit deeper into the Nameless lore too with that one.
Yeah.
So
I do know Clem is looking forward to more Nameless lore, and I think everyone is looking forward to a little bit more lore dumps there. And I know they've put a lot of effort into that, so I'm excited. Unfortunately, I'm not part of the Kickstarter, so all the stuff I'll have to learn secondhand, unfortunately. But I think we're going to find quite a lot of interesting stuff about them. And all the other factions we kind of do know about that's in Epic, but I think Nameless is going to be the most interesting because of the scale of things. Because we haven't really seen how big the forces of the Nameless are from a wider scale. So it'd be interesting to see, what do their ships look like? What does all that kind of look like? It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, we have a few tidbits in lore here and there. From events where they mostly are coming to a planet that is already war-torn and then aquaforming it when everyone else is fighting for their lives. So will be interesting to see where it's going, but there are many cool stories to be told with them for sure.
So I guess going back to our main topic, is there any other tidbits that we should know about the Ariana Grande incident?
I think we've covered most of the topic with it, because we already said there isn't. It's not really clear where we are standing now with the planet, but it's the first one where the council learned about doing these containment protocols, where they perfected it, where they started it, and I think for the setting, how it works now, I mean, one of the games is called Dead Zone. So it's about dead zones and containment protocols. So it's really, for the world building, one central point for the status quo, how it's now. And I think the realization that it could happen on any planet, that you just dig deep enough and find an artifact, I think that's really a big point, because you usually say, well, on Fifth Sphere, frontier worlds, there may be some other species is there will be war, yes. But if you maybe dig on a second sphere planet, on some side where there was nothing, or maybe there was a park for one of the big investors from a corporation, and then they dig it up and make a new villa for him, and then they find an artifact, all hell could break loose on the second sphere planet, and then you can't contain that anymore. You can't just say, well, it never existed. So the possibilities of these artifacts really open up any storytelling points you want to use.
And it could open up to maybe another race that is similar, like the plague, that kind of spawns the same kind of way. I mean, we don't really know what the plague actually is, or whether it's actually a particular biological weapon that's been integrated into these artifacts, or is it a species, and then you could find other species that are similar, that they find artifacts and I don't know, turns everyone blue or something like that. So it's interesting to see where they go with it, especially with its origins and whether it's artificially made. Is it, how does it evolve? If the plague is left alone for a while, what does that become? Does it become like a hive mind? I think there's a lot of directions you can go here, and it's quite interesting about the Asterians being part of this, but not really. So it'd be interesting to see if they have containment protocols themselves, or have a planet they've just left the plague go nuts on, and seeing what's happened to the plague over all the hundreds, thousands of years, maybe potentially, that they have known about it. So there's so many different things that we don't know. That's quite exciting to find out.
Yes, I think even going back to the origins, it seems like the plague was dormant, or somehow dormant maybe, because in the Death Arc there wasn't something spreading or anything spreading really, because the Assyrians were really aware of that only when the ships from House Grace entered the Death Arc. It started that they turned and it got a new life, so to say. So who knows if they can be contained? It could go back again. Then again, why are the artifacts just going off now the last 90, 100 years?
Yeah,
And
interesting.
not before? Is it just only the humans digging them up?
The others, and I mean, there are species that are immune, like we found out from the orcs are immune, or probably the races of Gora, which are, were goblins and
I think
Hulks.
they are. Yeah, they are. The son of Gora is radioactive, so the sunlight.
Okay, there we go.
I think
it could,
and that's
could
why
got something to do with that.
Yeah, maybe they are. That's why they grow so big and mean and green. Apparently, it has to do with the radiation. So maybe that's why they are immune to the plague. Could be
Interesting. And I think going forward, and from a release point of view, we're probably going to be taking a break from the plague, just because we just had a huge summer event solely about the plague. So I think it'll be interesting going forward what we're going to focus on. I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit of rib stuff. But I do know they've got things in the works for the world, especially how we possibly maybe get new books as well.
We've just got a new big threat with the Night Stalkers, which is another thing that has to be contained, but on a whole different level. So I think the plague was really, for now our real world years, for the last 10 years, the biggest threat to the universe, that maybe even got the Veer-myn out. Maybe they were sensing that the plague is spreading, so they were afraid and got out of hiding. Yeah. But now and then the Veer-myn were more around. Now you have the Night Stalkers invading planets through mines and portals in other dimensions. So it's really, I think the plague will still be there, but not as a focal point maybe, or focal faction that it was before.
Fair enough. All right, well, we'll leave that there. So if you guys got any questions, on guys, girls, and everyone in between, have you got any questions for us about the area incident or any of our episodes, leave a comment down below. We had a few comments from last time, so we're gonna read them out here. So we've got Dare to Wonder, who wanted us to sponsor this episode by Chimera Corp, proud creator of Grafton. Shout out to Dare to Wonder. So if you do want your corporation to be sponsoring an episode, leave a comment below. We also had Adrian Scott 4288. A huge shout out to Adrian, because he basically watches the episodes live when we do the premiere. And so if you do want to keep him company, make sure you click the notify me on the YouTube and just chat away, because I jump in there once in a while, and it's always good to see some people talking about the episode live, and it's just a good way of everyone joining up. But the winner of the book competition that we had last week, which was the final rush, it goes to Joshua Lafoon 8419. He said, "I love the content. I've begun to dig into the Warpath lore a few months ago. These podcasts really help deep dive into the game while I'm at work. It took me a while to get sold on Mantic Sci-Fi Rangers, and last year's Crazy Box plus the Vault kind of got me hooked. And they actually are doing Crazy Boxes at the moment. I don't think that's sci-fi, or you can choose sci-fi. I'm not quite sure of the Crazy Box deal at the moment, because I got the board games Crazy Box, and hopefully that will be arrive. But it's a good way, because I got the Crazy Box last year too, and I got a lot of different races as well from I think Star Saga and a lot of Dreadball. I even got a Chovar. I don't know how to say that. Chovar.
Yeah, I say Chovar, but then again, I'm German, so don't trust me on that. I'm doing my own thing too. So
yeah, and I got a whole bunch of Asterians, and I got an Enforcer kind of vehicle as well. And it's a really good way of just giving you a bit of a scatter shot I think I also got some Brockers in there. A bit of a scatter shot of all the different kind of sci-fi things you can get. The models aren't 100%, but you can definitely see the evolution, how they're getting better as well. So, I would suggest if you see sci-fi crazy boxes to reach out. It's a good way of getting into it. And it looks like Joshua did the same here. He continues saying, my favorite thing about Warpath universe is the fact it's lived in and not super depressing, grim, dark. I don't know if we agree with that after our conversation. But I understand it's not like 40K.
You can live there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like everything is shattered and so
broken,
It's a dystopia for sure. It's not nice to be a normal guy or gal living there, but it's still doable. You
correct. You could live your life without any conflict if you wanted to.
Yes, if you just go, on the normal news channel and look and watch your dreadball game, have a few pints, and then go to work again, and rinse and repeat. I think it's probably not a really fulfilling life, but it's okay. You're not
it's a life
working in 40K like manufactoriums and being lobotomized as a servitor. So I mean, there are cyborgs in this universe too, so it can happen maybe, but not on that scale.
It's still grim and dark, but you could actually have a happy life. There is a possibility. There is a small percentage of chance you could have a happy life. So, which is unlike the 40K, which is
the
probably
GCPS dream.
Yeah, exactly. Goes on to say, super depressing. Being able to customize your army and give them a story that makes sense in a larger universe makes hobbying that much more fun. I agree. I think with some of the other universes out there, you sometimes get a pigeonhole because of the lore. I think here you can go a little bit crazy with it. You can take a GCPS army and make a corporation kind of theme around it, and you can make it whatever you want, and that will still work in the sense of the universe itself. Continue saying it's hard to want any other faction firefight until we get Rebs and Nameless. I kind of agree with the Rebs. I think Rebs will be a good melting pot of what we potentially could see on the table. Dead Zone is really full of flavor with its theme list. I could see some real specific alien races pop up with those or corporation lists, which I agree. I think they're diving more with the Dead Zone into having kind of theme lists or theme firefight teams, Dead Zone teams, however you want to describe it. I think that's a really good way of introducing different factions without it being a faction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I mean, disclaimer, I've worked on those lists and also a bit on the lore here and there at least. So I have to be a fan, but but I think it's really a great way for a game like Dead Zone to get a bit more of this universe in there, more of different species, maybe even like the Goblin faction we have, which we have a few snipers here and there, but not a whole team, and we really have a chance there to have a few named characters, because personally I'm a big fan of named characters because I think they tie in the universe. I know many people say I really want to do my own thing, and I don't like that there is one named character appearing over and over again, and I get that. But I think without named characters overall, it sometimes it can be a bit bland. A good mix is the one you should aim for.
Yeah, and also no one can dictate your own fun. So even if there's a named character, you don't have to go by the name. At the end of the day, a name is very cosmetic. You can change it to whatever you want. You could keep the stats exactly the same. So I think that it's just a good way of finding the common denominator for people, of using these named characters that are in lore. Because if they're able to kind of build a character around something that's established in lore, it means they can develop its look a lot easier than trying to think what's going to be the look that's going to fit everybody's wants and desires, which they're never going to achieve anyway. So having those little kind of things, I like it. I'm just a lore buff, so I like it. They drop little things like that. And I think there's so much potential with Dead Zone of introducing these teams. I mean, when we're talking about greenskins, we're talking about Hulks, goblins, orcs, or even hobgoblins is another one that we could throw in. There's so many different variations you could have with those teams. And when you're talking about Marauders, there's a big pot of different races we could use there. So, and then Rebs as well. If you add in Rebs, you could have a full Singar team, so a full team of sharks. I keep referring to the sharks. I think that would be really cool to have space sharks more. Like,
Yeah, I think they are
name one game that has it.
I think they are one of the best received species from the not established races or factions.
I would say the
think the
Similians as well is another one.
The apes, the gorillas,
apes, yeah.
The simians, yes. Yeah, I think the simians too, but I think the sphere and their design space as a bit more slender hammerhead sharks is really something completely unique, and they just feel right. They are really interesting, and they can't be really compared to something else. So I think they are really unique, and there are a few tidbits here and there. In a first edition Dead Zone book, there was mention of a plague infected sphere. I think Akishak is her name, and there it seems like she has a bit of a Twi'lek from Star Wars influence, like she was a dancer, and it's like exotic enough for the humans, but still close enough, to look, compatible. So I think it's what makes them interesting, because they are distinct enough, but then again, alien enough.
And then make a lesser.
Close enough.
And the dream for me would be oozes or alestopods. Also, because those are two races that not a lot of people know. I've got it on the wiki as well. They're basically just big blobs, and I like alestopods are kind of like caterpillars, which I think will be quite interesting. We know two of them that we know they come in purple and green variants. It'll be interesting to get more on that. And I don't know if they are a throwaway gimmicky race, but it would be awesome to see like a serious version of what that species looks like. So that's just my little pipe dream there. So to go off, Josh, you just send us an email at kingsofwarwiki@gmail.com just with your details, and I'll get that book ordered through Wingcast Publishing for you. And so, yeah, hopefully get that out to you as soon as possible. But if you've got any comments for us, leave a message down below. We're not going to do a giveaway this pod just because, well, if I give away every single pod, I'm going to run out of money. So so we'll leave it there. But if you've got any suggestions for any topic you want us to cover, make sure you put a little message down below. You can also join our Discord, which we're active in, and we like to chat away in there. On our Facebook, we've got a Patreon if you want to chuck us a buck so we can actually do more giveaways and I don't become poor. And also, we've also got, what have we got? We've got YouTube, obviously, and then just like and subscribe and all that fun stuff, because that does help us get the pod out there, more voices involved in the chat, and we all can just get along and have a good time.
There are so many topics to talk about, and we will try to cover as many as possible, and we will also try to have like a segue that makes sense from one topic to another, like at least a little bit. And I think we had a good start here with one of the main antagonists, the GCPS, of course. I mean, the plague. And from here we will go to XM4, have a bit. GCPS will always be there. Have a bit more of the GCPS, but especially more Veer-myn and Forge Fathers, but also other factions who took part in the events there. And I think that's a good point to, talk about other factions too. And I think we will surely get to Assyrians a bit more in depth, because we talked a bit about them today, but there is obviously much more to do. But I think just drop a comment somewhere Dave mentioned.
We'll see it.
And just say which event or maybe also faction you'd like to hear, or what's about the universe you like, so that we could tie that in one of the next episodes.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope to hear from you, and we'll sign off now. And I will just say goodbye everyone, and thanks for listening. And this episode was sponsored by the Megan Corporation along with the Chimera Corp.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.